The United States of America is, at this exact moment, more than $33 trillion in debt. That number is so large, it stopped meaning anything to most people. 33 trillion with a T. If you spent $1 million every single day since the year zero, since before Rome fell, before the printing press, before anyone had even imagined a United States, you still would not have spent $1 trillion yet. And America has 33 of them, in debt. So here's the question that nobody in Washington ever actually answers. What happens when America cannot pay it back? The short answer is nothing, because America will never have to. Not because the debt does not matter, it does, but because America built a system, quietly over decades, that makes the concept of going broke functionally impossible. And once you understand how that system works, you will never look at money, debt, or government spending the same way again. Let's start with a basic question you were probably never taught to ask properly. What is money? Not philosophically, practically. When you earn $1, what are you actually holding? For most of human history, money was backed by something physical, gold, silver, grain, something you could hold, something with intrinsic value. If you had $1, there was theoretically $1's worth of gold sitting in a vault somewhere waiting for you. That ended in 1971. In August of that year, President Nixon quietly unhooked the US dollar from gold. No referendum, no global vote. He just announced it, and overnight the entire international financial system shifted. From that moment forward, the dollar was backed by nothing physical at all. It was backed by something far more powerful. It was backed by trust. And more specifically, it was backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, which is just a formal way of saying backed by the belief that America will always be able to pay. But here's where it gets interesting. America pays its debts in dollars, and America is the only entity on Earth that is legally allowed to create dollars. So technically, America can never run out of dollars. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not fringe economics. This is the structural reality that professional economists debate quietly in academic journals, while politicians argue about the debt ceiling on television. Here is how the machinery actually operates. When the U.S. government wants to spend money it does not have, on infrastructure, on defense, on interest payments on its existing debt, it doesn't just print cash and hand it out. It issues Treasury bonds. Think of them as IOUs. The government borrows money from investors, individuals, pension funds, foreign governments, and promises to pay it back with interest over time. Now, those bonds need buyers, and here's where the Federal Reserve enters the picture. The Federal Reserve is America's central bank. It's technically independent from the government, though that independence is more complicated than it sounds. And one of its tools, a tool it has used extensively since 2008, is the ability to buy those Treasury bonds itself. When the Fed buys bonds, it doesn't transfer money that already exists. It creates new money, electronically, from nothing. This process has a name: quantitative easing. And between 2008 and 2022, the Federal Reserve created roughly $9 trillion this way. $9 trillion created, not earned, not taxed, created. Now, in any other country, doing this would be catastrophic. You print too much money, you get inflation, prices spiral, the currency collapses. We've seen it happen in Argentina, in Zimbabwe, in Weimar Germany. But America is not any other country, because the US dollar is not just America's currency, it's the world's currency. Roughly 60% of all global foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars. Oil is priced in dollars. International debt is denominated in dollars. If a company in South Korea wants to buy soybeans from Brazil, the transaction almost certainly happens in dollars. Neither country involved is American. This is called reserve currency status, and it's the structural reason America can absorb debt loads that would destroy any other economy.
Because the global demand for dollars is so enormous and so constant, America can keep issuing them without the same inflationary consequences other countries would face. The excess demand absorbs the excess supply. It is, if you step back and think about it clearly, one of the most extraordinary financial arrangements in human history. Now, before you think this is a story about American genius and financial invincibility, let's slow down. Because this system has a cost, and the cost is not paid by America alone. When the United States creates dollars and exports them to the rest of the world, it's effectively exporting inflation. The more dollars circulate globally, the more pressure it puts on commodity prices, on import costs, on the purchasing power of people in countries that have no say in Federal Reserve policy. A farmer in Nigeria, a factory worker in Bangladesh, a pensioner in Argentina, they all feel the downstream effects of decisions made in Washington. They have zero vote, zero recourse. And there's another cost closer to home. The reserve currency status of the dollar makes American exports more expensive than they would be otherwise. Because global demand for dollars keeps the dollar strong, American-made goods cost more on international markets. This is one structural reason the United States has run a persistent trade deficit for decades. The economist Barry Eichengreen once described this as an exorbitant privilege, the ability to borrow cheaply and spend freely because the world needs your currency. But the flip side of that privilege is an exorbitant burden on the industries and workers whose livelihoods depend on America being competitive in global trade. So when politicians argue about debt and deficits, they're usually arguing about the wrong thing. The real question is not whether America can pay its debts. It structurally can. The real question is who's paying the hidden price of that privilege. Here's where we need to zoom out. Because this system, this dollar-based global financial system, is not permanent. Nothing is. China has been systematically building an alternative. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have openly discussed creating a new reserve currency structure. Saudi Arabia has started accepting payment for oil in currencies other than the dollar. The conversation is accelerating. Now, most serious economists will tell you the dollar's dominance isn't ending next year or the year after. The infrastructure of global finance is not dismantled overnight. The systems, the contracts, the institutions, they're entrenched in a way that took 70 years to build. But the direction of travel matters. Because here's the mathematical reality that doesn't get said plainly enough. America's ability to never go broke is not based on productivity alone. It's not based on innovation alone. It's based significantly on the world's continued willingness to hold and use dollars. The moment that willingness erodes, not collapses, just erodes, the calculations change. The cost of borrowing rises, the ability to run deficits without consequence shrinks, and the countries that have been absorbing the effects of American monetary policy without any say in it start to find alternatives that actually work for them. None of this is imminent, but all of it is in motion. And the countries best positioned to notice and adapt are the ones whose citizens understand the system well enough to ask the right questions. So, back to where we started. Can America go broke? In the conventional sense, the way a household goes broke, the way Greece went broke, the way Argentina has gone broke repeatedly, no, not really. The system prevents it. But there's a different kind of broke. There's the kind of broke where the system still functions, the debt clock still ticks, the government still spends, but the invisible costs keep rising. Where the privilege of printing the world's reserve currency slowly hollows out the middle class. Where the exorbitant burden shifts onto people who never voted on any of this. America may never go technically broke, but that doesn't mean the bill doesn't exist. It just means someone else is always paying it. The question worth sitting with is not whether America can keep running this system. The question is, for how much longer does the rest of the world let it?